Hello aspirants, welcome to Study Regime. In this session, I'll be dealing up with a very important topic of ancient history, and the name of this topic is Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. If you have analyzed the previous year question paper, you must have seen that it has been reflected in a form of questions time and again in UPSC Civil Services Prelims. So I'll be very quick with this topic because I presume that you have been reading these topics or you have been revising these topics since last 1 or 1.5 years. So I'll be very quick, but I will make sure that none of the important facts or concept I'll be missing. So let's start with the topic. Harappan civilization or Indus Valley civilization. This civilization belonged to the Chalcolithic period, and this is one of the River Valley civilization among the other contemporary civilization. For example, the Egyptian civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization, and the Chinese civilization. But this civilization was the largest among all these. So this was called Harappan civilization because the first site was excavated in 1921 by Dayaram Sahani. So that's why the name came as Harappan civilization. Few people call it as Indus Valley civilization also, but later on when other sites of Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization were excavated, they were found well beyond the extent of Indus Valley. That's why the name Harappan culture or Harappan civilization suits it better. So if we talk about the geographical extent of Indus Valley civilization, the northernmost site in present day India belongs to a place called Manda in Jammu and Kashmir. The easternmost site is in Meerut of present day Uttar Pradesh, that is Alamgirpur on the bank of Yamuna river. The southernmost site is in Maharashtra, Daimabad on the bank of Parvara river, and the westernmost site lies in Sukta Gindor, a town which is situated in Pakistan-Iranian border in Balochistan province of present day Pakistan. If we talk about or if we see the important features of Harappan civilization which demarcate it from other contemporary civilization, the 5 features are: 1. The systematic town planning on the lines of grid system. Second was the extensive use of burnt brick in construction. The other contemporary civilization they also used the burnt brick, but the extent to which these were used in Harappan civilization, that was great. Next, the underground drainage system, and fourth one is the characteristic pottery of red and black ware. Red and black ware pottery was very prominent in Harappan civilization. The seals which were used for trading the script of Harappan civilization, which is not deciphered yet, it is called Bostophadan script. Next, the 5th feature is the fortified town or citadel. It was not found in one of the site named as Chanudado, but a fortified town has been found in majority of the Harappan sites. Next is the evolution of Indus Valley civilization. Various experts or historians have a different opinion about the various phases of Harappan civilization, but majority of them agreed upon this trifurcation, namely as Harappan civilization, early Harappan civilization. This was the continuation of the rural settlement of a Neolithic phase, but few urban settlements were growing. The period is 3300 BC to 2600 BC. Next is the mature Harappan phase. The majority of urban towns which we know like Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Chanudaro, Kalibangan, these belongs to this mature Harappan period only. And the last one is late Harappan period. This is the phase of decline of the urban feature of Harappan civilization, or you can say that the decline of or transformation of Harappan civilization into the rural settlement only. So now we will see the different important sites of Harappan civilization, the rivers on which these sites were situated, and the major objects which were found on these sites by our archaeologists. So I will not be dealing up with each and every object. I will be marking up the important objects of a particular site which are very much important from your examinations perspective. So I am starting with the first and foremost, that is Harappa. Harappa is situated in Pakistan, Punjab province on the bank of Ravi river. It is famous for the granaries, second the red sandstone male torso, and the next is the mother goddess. You have to remember these three objects from Harappa. Next is Mohenjo-daro. It is situated in Sindh province of Pakistan on Indus River. It was discovered by R.D. Banerjee in 1922. The fact which is very important is it is the largest Indus Valley civilization site. ठीक है जी. The next important information about Mohenjo-daro is the great granaries, the great bath, and the Pashupati seal and bronze dancing girl. So you have to remember these informations. These 4 or 5 information are very important from your prelims point of view. I'm again repeating: the great granary, second is the great bath, third is the Pashupati seal, or you can say the seal of Protosiva, and the bronze dancing girl. You have to remember all these important figures. The next is Chanudaro. It is also situated on the banks of Indus River. It was discovered by N.G. Majumdar in 1931, and it is known as the bead capital or ornamental capital of Indus Valley civilization. You will be seeing, or we observed that various ornamental objects, for example lipstick, for example the shell ornament makers, bead makers shop, etc. were found in Chanudaro. Another important information is the terracotta model of bullock cart was also found in Chanudaro. The next important site, which is situated in Gujarat on the banks of Bhogava river, the name of site is Lothal. It was discovered by S.R. Rao in 1953, and this site, you have to remember 2 important information from this site. One is the presence of dockyard. So from presence of dockyard, we presume that it was a very important naval trading site. Next information is the remnants of rice husk, and another is the double burial of male and female together. So you have to remember 3 information: the presence of dockyard, we inferred that it was a naval trade site, second is the rice remnant of rice husk, and the third is double burial system. Next is Dholavira, and from this site question was asked in prelims 2021, although the base of the question was from the current affairs, but still we will be having a look on this site, and the information relating to it are: first is the unique water harvesting system, that was very specific or unique feature of a civilization which was as old as 46 to 4700 year ago. So in present day India also we do not have such a rainwater harvesting system, but our forefathers or ancestors built that back. Next is storm drainage water system, only site, this was the only site which was divided into 3 parts. The other sites were divided into only 2 parts. One is the citadel or western part or upper part, upper town, another was the normal or common town or lower town, but this was the only city which was divided into 3 parts. Next important site was Surtokada, and this was discovered by S. Joshi, and this was the only site where the remnants of horse were found, oval grave, port burial, and the soldier's sign on port's heart. These were the information which are important from your examination point of view. The next site is Kalibangan, as the name suggests, Kali plus Banga. Banga means the bangles. So this was discovered by Amalanand Ghosh, and the bangle factory were found in Kalibangan. Next important information was plowed field surface. So from here we came to the conclusion that the plowing or agriculture activity was very prominent in Indus Valley civilization. The next important information was the presence of fire altar. From here we presume that the Harappan people were worshipping the nature, or they were following the animism. Various objects of nature in form of animal, in form of various natural objects like fire, etc. The next important information or the important sites, these belong to Haryana, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh and Maharashtra. Haryana is the state, or the majority of the state, the maximum number of states of present you can say that the India of Harappan civilization belonged to Haryana only. Rakhigadi, which is situated on the Ghaggar river, is the largest Indian site of Indus Valley civilization. These three sites of Haryana, one is Banwali, another is Rakhigadi and another is Bhagwanpura. In these three sites, we find the remnants belonging to all three phases of Harappan civilization. The remnants of early Harappan site is, remnants of mature Harappan is, and the remnants of the later Harappan is. The next is site which is in Punjab, that is Roped on the bank of river Satluj. Here we find the dogs were buried along with the humans. Next, the copper axe. You have to remember these two information only. In Uttar Pradesh, we find the major site is Alamgirpur. Here we find the broken copper blade and the ceramic items. Another sites in UP are Manpur, Bargaon, Hulas and Sonauli. If you can remember, you can just have a glance and revise these multiple times. Next is the southernmost site, which is in Maharashtra, Daimabad on the banks of Parvara river. We find bronze image of charioteer with chariot. We find ox and elephants, and these were in form of various figurines of terracotta and rhinoceros also. So this was all about the various Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization sites and the objects which were found from these sites by our archaeologists. So now we will be seeing what were the important features of Indus Valley civilization, and we will try to explain these features very fastly, but will not miss any of the information. So first is the town planning and the town structure. Indus Valley civilization follows the rectangular grid pattern. The roads were crisscrossing at right angles. The next important information is the use of burnt mud bricks, which were jointed with each other by using the gypsum and mortar. Next information is the city was divided into two parts. The raised part was upper citadel and there was lower town, and the lower town belongs to the working class quarters. The next is the mostly building have private walls and properly ventilated bathrooms. So here the concept of hygiene was prominent in Indus Valley civilization. Next was they do not have large monumental structure like temples and palaces, which were prominent in other contemporary civilization like Egyptian civilization and Mesopotamian civilization, but they followed the advanced drainage system. The next information is about agriculture. What kind of agriculture practices were followed by Harappan people that supported such large population or supported such urban population? So the main crops were wheat and barley. We have the sign of presence of rice also, that is from Lothal and Rangpur, but these are from Gujarat only. Some other crops were grown like dates, mustard, sesame, cotton, rice, peas, etc. Harappan people were the first who produced cotton in the world, so Greek called them Sindon for that. Next, as we seen from the various seals and the figurines of various animals found from Harappan site, we concluded that various animals drawn wooden plow and the stone sickles. ठीक है जी? Nalas, or you can say that check dams were found, but channels or canal irrigation was not probably practiced. चेक डैम उसके बाद में जितना वाटर स्टोर होता था उसी से लोकल एरिया में ही इरिगेशन होता था. कैनाल्स वर नॉट यूज्ड फॉर irrigation of a large tract of land. The next information is about the domestication of animal. Which were the animal that were being domesticated by the Harappan people? On the seals or the various terracotta figurines, we find mention of these animals. We find oxen, buffalo, goat, sheep, pig, dog, cat, asses and camels were domesticated. We find the reference of humped bull, or you can say that Pashupati on the Pashupati seal, unicorn, but horse was not at the center stage of Harappan civilization. Next is elephant and rhinoceros were known, but lion was also not known to Harappan civilization. From here we came to conclusion that the Harappan civilization was not extended till the easternmost portion of India, from where the reference of lion or tiger we can have. Next is the technology and craft. Such urban population cannot be sustained without the use of advanced technology and craft. So this era was known as the first urbanization in India. Along with stone, various objects of bronze were used in this civilization. That's why we know this civilization as the Bronze civilization or Chalcolithic civilization. So the various objects which were used by mixing the arsenic with copper instead of tin. As neither the tin or copper was easily available in India, so bronze tools do not abound in this region. The another aspect of Harappan civilization was the ample use of technology and craft, as such large urban population cannot be sustained without the use of advanced technology. As the name of this civilization, that is the period Bronze Age civilization, suggests the extensive use of metallurgy, because the bronze is obtained from mixing copper and tin. So they were well aware of the technology or metallurgy by mixing copper and tin. The people of Harappa, they were well acquainted with bronze, but as we know, copper was not much in vogue in Harappan sites. It has to be imported from Rajasthan, tin has to be imported from Afghanistan. That's why we do not find much objects of bronze in Harappan civilization, but the people were very well acquainted about the bronze. Iron was not known to these people. Another important craft, for example, if we found pottery at various places or various sites of Harappan civilization, we come to conclusion that they were acquainted about spinning. Through these structure or grid pattern of streets or the houses we found, we came to know about that Harappan civilization, the people of Harappan civilization were aware of about the bricklaying, through the port of you can say that the dockyard of Lothal, we came to know about that these people were aware about boat making. The seal founds shows the practice of seal making. The terracotta objects shows the industry of terracotta making were found there. Next, the Chanudaro, bead capital. So the process of bead making or the practice of bead making was very much in use. Next is trade and commerce. To support such civilization, one cannot rely upon the internal resources only, or the Harappan people were not you can say that sufficient on their own. They have to import or they have to trade domestically as well as internationally. Domestically, as I have discussed in previous point, that copper was imported or copper was procured from Khetadi region, tin was procured from Afghanistan region. Apart from that, we found the seals of Harappan civilization from various places, for example, the Dilmun in Bahrain and Makan on Makaran coast. So we found in Sumerian text the reference of Meluha, and Meluha is known to be similar as Indus Valley civilization. So the next thing is the use of boats and bullock carts for transportation. This gave reference that the trading, or you can say that exchange of goods, was prominent in Harappan civilization. The next important thing is they were importing gold from Kolar goldfield, silver, copper, tin, jade and steatite, and they were exporting the agriculture product. As cotton was a very prominent crop, they were exporting cotton goods, terracotta figurines, beads from Chanudaro and the conch shell or the sea creature shell from Lothal, and the ivory product and copper. Now we will move to the another aspect of Indus Valley civilization, that depending upon the objects found on various sites, in various sites of Harappan civilization, we came to the conclusion that the what kind of society or what kind of social organization were there in during Harappan civilization. So firstly, we'll find the hierarchy in various Harappan sites. Firstly, we see the presence of citadel and the lower town clearly indicates that some kind of hierarchy or social hierarchy was followed by Harappan peoples. Nextly, if we see the figurine of the male torso or the bearded male, we found or we come to the conclusion that these people were very fashion conscious. They followed different hairstyle and wearing bead was very popular in Harappan civilization. The use of cosmetics was very common. As we discussed a few points ago, that Chanudaro was known as the ornamental capital of Harappan civilization. The next is the fishing, hunting and bullfighting are also the famous or the you can say that important pastime of these people. So now we'll come to the another important aspect, that to carry out such important construction, for example building of large building like the drainage system, building up of check dams, these cannot be carried out by private enterprise. For that there should have or there have to be a government authority or a public authority to look after these issues. So what kind of polity was followed during Harappan civilization will figure out. So central authority may have contributed to the uniform culture. The first aspect, the uniformity in the town planning cannot be there without a central authority. Second thing, although we do not have what kind of polity was being followed by Harappan people, but we do have a clear idea from the objects which are found from Indus Valley civilization sites that they do not have a freestanding army, because the bows, arrows, spears, etc. were not found from Harappan civilization sites. Next thing is, priests were not ruling these sites as were in Mesopotamian and other contemporary sites civilization like you can say that Mesopotamian civilization and Egyptian civilization. These were primarily ruled by the priestly classes, but Harappan civilization was maybe or maybe some kind of you can say that a business class was ruling Harappan civilization. The next aspect is the religious practices of Harappan civilization. As we came to know about various natural objects, for example the seal male deity Pasupati Mahadeva or Protashiva, a three-horned head, these were representing in sitting posture of a yogi. The next aspect is the religious practices of Harappan civilization. What kind of religion or what kind of religious practices were Harappan people following? We do not have any literature about this, because we could not decipher the script of Harappan civilization as of now, but we have come to conclusion upon the inferences which we have drawn from the objects found from various Harappan sites. For example, the seal deity or Pashupati Mahadeva, which is known to be as Proto Shiva, three-horned head and is representing in the shitty posture of a yogi, we came to conclusion as it represents the present day Shiva or the present day or you can say that the present. The next aspect is what kind of religious practices were followed by the people of Harappan civilization. As we know that the literature of Harappan civilization is not available with us, because we are not able to decipher the Harappan script as of now. The information available to is based upon the analysis of various objects or the various signs which are found on the seals and the signboards of Harappan civilization. The few among them are as follows. For example, the first is the seal male deity of Pashupati Mahadeva, Protashiva. It is a three-horned head figurine and is represented in sitting a posture of a yogi, with one leg placed with another, surrounded by an elephant, a tiger, a rhinoceros, and below the throne there is a buffalo, and at his feet two deers are also shown. Next, the presence of phallus or lingam or yoni worship was also there. Rigveda also talk about the people, non-Aryan people who were phallus worshipper. Through the figurine of Mother Goddess, we came to know that the chief female deity was Mother Goddess. Next is the people of Indus region also worshipped the tree such as people and the various animals such as unicorn and humped bull, etc. Some kind of amulets were also weared by Harappan people. For example, if I am wearing this amulet or this thread, sacred thread, to warn off or to bar off the evil spirits. Next is the script of Harappan civilization. This is the oldest script in Indian subcontinent. This is pictographic script which is yet to be deciphered, and as I have mentioned in the starting of this video, this script is known as Bustophodon script. Sorry यार, इसको एक बार हटाइए. So the next important aspect of Harappan civilization is its script. It is the Harappan civilization had the oldest script which is found in Indian subcontinent, but yet this script is not deciphered as it is in pictographic form. The script of Harappan period is known as Bustophodon script. We are not able to decipher it for now. The next aspect is the pottery which are found in Harappan civilization or the various sites of Harappan civilization, and the pottery belonging to this period is known as red and black ware. Plain pottery is also found there, but mainly the red and black ware pottery is found in Harappan Valley sites. So through potteries we came to know that the process of wheel making or the process or idea of the spinning of wheel was known to Harappan people. The next aspect is the seal and sealings. Various seals and sealing, they represent the prevalence of the trade and commerce in Harappan Valley sites. So most of the seals were square plaque. The next thing is they were made from a steatite. It is like a very soft stone or you can soft rock like soapstone. The next is the seal had an animal. It was not a cow or human figurine on one side and an inscription on the opposite side or inscription on the both sides. So it can have a figurine on one side or inscription on another side, but also it can have inscription on the both side of the seals. These seals were primarily used for commercial purpose, as I have already told. These were also used as amulets for wearing on the, you can say that, hand or arm, as the form of identification also, or for educational purpose also. Seal with symbol similar to swastika design were also found. Next is the art and architecture of Harappan civilization. First is the process of bronze casting or metallurgy. This was practiced on wide scale using the lost wax technique. इस टेक्निक में सिंपली वो करते क्या हैं, ये आपको डिटेल में जानने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, बट सिंपली आपको ये याद रखना है कि हड़प्पन पीपल वर यूजिंग द लोस्ट वैक्स टेक्निक. नेक्स्ट, दे मेनली कंसिस्ट ऑफ ह्यूमन एंड animal figurine. For example, the figurine or the, you can say that, bronze image of dancing girl was found in Tribhanga dancing posture from Mohenjo-daro. The next is the stone statues. Very famous of bearded man was found in Mohenjo-daro, was made up of steatite. Next is the terracotta figurine. For example, the famous one is Mother Goddess. Another is the mask of horned deity. These terracotta figurines were also prominent, or these terracotta figurines were made during Harappan civilization. The last topic is about the decline of Harappan civilization, that how the cities or how the first urban civilization of India declined. After 2000 BC, Indus Valley civilization declined and gradually faded away. Various historians have different opinion regarding the decline of Indus Valley civilization. Some says that it was the sudden decline of Harappan civilization due to some extreme climatic events, for example flood, etc. But another were of the opinion that there was gradual decline of Harappan civilization, and the proponent of this theory was Fair Services, a scholar named as Fair Services, and he gave the theory of ecological balance, that Harappan people were using the resources or using the land resources at excess, and the ecological imbalance took place, due to which the Harappan cities, or you can say that urban phase of Harappan civilization, that faded away and gradually gave way to the rural settlement. For example, in Rakhigadi and Banwali, the settlements of or you can say that rural settlements were found. So here the first topic, that is Indus Valley civilization, is completed. Hello aspirants, welcome to study regime once again. In today's lecture, I will be dealing up with another topic of ancient Indian history. This topic is also very important from your examinations perspective, and the name of topic is Mauryan Empire and its related features and various specifications. This topic has many times reflected in form of question in UPSC Prelims as well as mains examination in past few years. This year also there is high probability that this topic can be asked in form of a question in your upcoming prelims examination. So you have to be very specific with this topic. So without wasting much time, I'll be starting up with this topic. So in northwestern part of India, after recession of Alexander from the tribal republics of northwestern India, a vacuum was created, and the decline of Nanda dynasty was also going on. So on premises of these two factors, Chandragupta Maurya evolved as a leader, and he conquered the throne of India, and he became one of the, or you can say that the first great empire of Indian subcontinent. So how come we know about the history of Mauryan age? So there were firstly through the literary sources, and secondly these literary sources were corroborated by the archaeological sources, famously through the Ashokan inscription and edicts. The famous literary sources are as follows. Firstly, the first and foremost is Indica by the Greek ambassador of Seleucus Nicator, that is Megasthenes. So Indica by Megasthenes is the first sources, although the original copy of Indica is not available, but references of Indica and its reference of India has been reflected in many Greek resources, Greek literary sources. Next in the line is Kautilya's Arthashastra, you must be knowing about it. The third one is the famous Sanskrit play of Vishakadatta, that is Mudra Rakshasa, which tells about the story of ascension of Chandragupta Maurya on throne of India. Next is the Dharmashastra text, such as in Puranic literature also there is some reference about the Mauryan Empire. Next in the line is Buddhist text like Jataka stories, Deepavansha, and specifically in Divyadana. These three sources, two sources are not that important, only you can remember that the pottery of Mauryan Empire was NBPW, Northern Black Polished Ware. So if you have to remember, the pottery of Harappan civilization was RBW, red and black ware, and the pottery, the color of pottery of Mauryan Empire is NBPW. So this is all about the history of Mauryan Empire. So now we will study about the first and one of the greatest empire of Mauryan Empire, emperor of Mauryan Empire, that is Chandragupta Maurya, and his period was 322 BC to 298 BC. Chandragupta Maurya, famously known as Sandrocotus in Greek literature, he waged a series of war against the last Nanda ruler, that is Dhananand, with help of his minister called Chanakya or Kautilya. So he conquered the throne of Magda, and he extended the Magda empire between the areas northwestern part of India till Beas and Bay of Bengal in the eastern part. So the huge territory of land between the river Beas on western side and Bay of Bengal in eastern side was under Chandragupta Maurya. In the south, his reign or his empire extended till Andhra region or Karnataka region, Maharashtra, in western part in Gujarat and central region. So thus the credit of first unification of India, or specifically the northern India, can be attributed to Chandragupta Maurya. Now, as you know, in 326, after the recession of Alexander and his subsequent death, Seleucus Nicator became the ruler of Bactrian region, or specifically the Afghanistan region of present time. According to Jaina sources, Chandragupta embraced Jainism towards end of his life and he abdicated the throne in favor of his son. He accompanied the famous Jaina saint named as Bhadrabahu and he went to present day state of Karnataka and famous place surrounded Belagola and he died there by the process of Sallekhana and the famous statue of Gomateshwara. You can get this as a question also. Gomateshwara is there in Shravan Belagola. So it is a famous Jaina pilgrimage site. And the statue of Gomateshwara, the son of Rishabhnath, is in Kyotsarg Mudra. So you have to remember these three facts. So this is all about Chandragupta Maurya. Now moving on to the topic of the reign of Bindusara, the son of Chandragupta Maurya. In Greek literature, this person is known as Amitrocatus और संस्कृत में अमित्रघटा, that is the destroyer of foes, मतलब दुश्मनों का विध्वंस करता. ठीक है जी. Next important information is Bindusara followed the extreme fatalistic order, or you can say that extreme order of आजीविका. और आजीविका किसने फाउंड किया था? That was founded by Makhali Gosala. So this information is very important from your examination perspective. You have to remember this thing. So next information is Bindusara maintained good diplomatic relation with Antiochus I of Seleucid king of Syria. So this talk about, or this reference, through this reference you can get information about the foreign relation, or you can say that international relation during the time of Bindusara. So after that, the Tibetan Buddhist monk named as Taranatha described Bindusara as the conqueror of land between two seas, that is the peninsular India. This important information you have to remember. The next source through which we get reference of Bindusara is Divyadan, or Buddhist biographical narrative of Mauryan kings. So in this it mentions a revolt at a place called Takshila near Peshawar in present Pakistan being suppressed by Ashoka and his son Bindusara, who was the Kumar, or you can say that prince or viceroy of Ujjain at this particular time. So this was all about Bindusara. Next, moving about the greatest ruler of Mauryan Empire, that is Ashoka the Great, as the name suggests. Because you will get the name, or you can say that you will find the mention of great with few rulers in Indian history. Few among them are like Ashoka the Great, Akbar the Great, etc. So after eliminating other claimants to the throne, Ashoka was coronated to the throne on 269 BC. You are not supposed to remember the fact. In the 9th regnal year, Ashoka fought the Kalinga war in 261 BC. After the 8 years, the 9th regnal year started and he fought this war, and it is known to everybody that this Ashoka was moved by the misery of people in this war, and he adopted ahimsa, or he adopted the path of ahimsa by seeing the bloodbath in this war, and in other words he left Bheri Ghosa and replaced it with Dhamma Ghosa. Later on he became, as I said earlier, he became the Buddhist under the guidance of Mogaliputta Tissa, और ये आपको ध्यान में रखना है because Mogaliputta was the person in whose you can say that chairmanship or presidentship third Buddhist council was held in 250 BC at Patliputra. All the four Buddhist council will be dealt separately, so you should not worry about this topic at this point of time. Next important work of Ashoka was the spread of Buddhism through various missionaries. He sent his daughter and son to Sri Lanka and other missionaries to Burma, Central Asia and other part of world. He also sent ambassador of peace to Greek kingdoms and the Greece also. So next important information is that many historians claim that Ashoka was extreme pacifist, and due to this policy the Mauryan Empire declined. But the fact you have to consider in this aspect is he did not reimposed the king of Kalinga on throne after the war. He retained Kalinga with his empire only. This shows that the conqueror tendency were not receded in totality. Secondly, he did not disbanded his army. Through these 2 points, we can infer that Ashoka did not follow the extreme pacifist policy despite being a very adamant follower of Buddhism, or a very you can say that a very strong follower of Buddhism. Next thing is, under Ashoka, almost the entire subcontinent came under the central or single control. As you know, in Chandragupta Maurya, the part of Magda and northwestern part of India was under the control of you can say that Mauryan Empire. In reign of Bindusara, through the wars or matrimonial alliances, he extended the reign of empire, or you can say that region of empire. And in Ashoka's regnal year, the empire further extended. So now we will separately see about the kind of economic system, the kind of you can say that the social system and the policy of religion by Ashoka, the Ashokan edicts and inscription, and about the minute details of Mauryan Emperor administration in detail through these upcoming topics. Firstly, the Mauryan economy. The Mauryan economy was, many historians say that this was the role of iron was very prominent in Mauryan economy, because it diversified the agriculture production, it helped in increase the agriculture land and irrigation facility, and contributed to growth of Mauryan economy. For example, the use of iron plow, it enable the farmers to plow the hard land, it enable the farmers to cut through the forest. Secondly, the occurrence of famine also reported in Kautilya's Arthashastra and Jaina text also. The Sohagura copper plate inscription and Mahasthana inscription deal with the relief measure that were used during the famine. So you can see the prominence of famine was also there at few places. Tolls were also levied on the commodity brought to the town for sale. This show about the nature of trade or the level of trade in Mauryan economy. Next is, the normal taxation rate was 1/6 of the produce. This is, you have to remember, the tax rate was 1/6 of the total produce, and the crown land was called Sitaha. So the next important information regarding the Mauryan Empire is, the Mauryan state had strict legal and penal system, the civil and criminal both system very strong, and the tax evaders attracted death penalty. This was the severity of you can say that punishing of a particular criminal. Even if the nature was of civil nature, the case was of civil nature, extreme penalty can be avoided in that case also. If we see about the monetary system, punch marked coin, mostly made up of silver, were used for transaction. Money was not only used for trade, but government paid its officer in cash. So as you know, gradually the cash paying system declined during the 7th and 8th century AD, and feudalism came in India, and the base was the transfer of, or the basis of payment became land. But at this point of time, the central administration can be maintained only with the help of the regular cash payment. So moving on to the next important information, the salaries were in the range of 48,000 panna to 60 panna a year. There were hard laborer also known as karmakaras. You have to look for these kind of words, or you have to look for you have to read or revise about these kind of words, because UPSC has a habit of asking such words from ancient and medieval history specifically, and they will simply just ask about what does this word imply, or what is the meaning of, or for which community or for which type of people this particular word is being or was being used. So you have to remember such kind of word. This is very important from your examinations perspective. So the next thing is, there was state monopoly of mining. There was few subjects like mining, forest, salt, and the sale of liquor and manufacture of arms and metallurgy. In these case there was state monopoly. The state owned public enterprises were responsible for maintaining of or providing services in these activity. Another activity or other economic activity can be done by private enterprises also. So, moving towards the next topic, that is about the what kind of society was there during the Mauryan period. So, first thing is, the society was clearly divided into fourfold Varna system of Sanatan Dharma. As you know, slavery or dasas, there were existence of slaves in Indian society, or you can say that a Mauryan society at that time. The society was divided into number of caste and subcaste, which generally based on the some profession or occupation. Intermixing, or you can say that marriage between intervarna was or intercaste was reported at that time. There were two kinds of marriage, namely Anuloma Vivaha, in which groom of higher Varna caste was there, and Pratiloma, in that bride of higher Varna caste and the groom of lower caste was there. So while Kautilya mentioned about 9 categories of slave, Megasthenes reported its absence. So there is contradiction in these two literary sources, in which Kautilya accepted about the presence of slavery, but Megasthenes did not notice any kind of slavery. Maybe he did not know about the structure of Indian society very well. He thought he was considering slavery in terms of the kind of European slavery which was prevalent in Greek cities at that time. So Megasthenes also talk about the sevenfold social division. So Kautilya talked about 9 type of social division in Indian society, or 9 type of slaves you can say, and Megasthenes talk about sevenfold social division. So these are very trivial information. If you can remember, then well then good, otherwise you should move upon. Next is, as per the Jataka trails, untouchables like Chandala, Nishad and Sabar, these existed and were treated inhumanly. So the caste discrimination, or you can say that the practice of, you can say that some variants of untouchability were there in Mauryan society also. Widow remarriage stopped. So this tell about the declining condition of women. The institution of ganikas, or you can say that prostitution, expanded. Women were used as an object of leisure. So this implies that the situation or condition of women was gradually declining in Mauryan period. So next thing is, most artisans were from the Sudra communities. So the service providing person were mostly from the lower caste or Shudras. They were the worst paid and subjected to forced labor known as Visti. So you have to remember this word. What does Visti implies? It implies the forced labor. So you have to remember two words which are given here. First is Visti and another is, which I have discussed on the previous page, that is Karmakar. You have to remember these two words specifically. The next topic is the Dhamma of Ashoka. What this is all about. Ashoka was a Buddhist, but he also promoted the few principles of morality known as Dhamma. The 4 cardinal points of Dhamma are as follows. Firstly, the tolerance, the acceptance of different viewpoints. Second is non-violence or ahimsa. Third is the good conduct. For example, obeying your parents and elders, respecting the priestly classes or brahmanas and monks, and following the welfare of the vulnerable people. The next is to propagate Dhamma. An officer called Dhamma Mahamatra was also appointed. Next, Sanghamitra, the daughter of Ashoka, was sent to Tamrapani, Sri Lanka, for conversion of women in Sri Lanka to Buddhism. As I have discussed earlier, he sent his daughter and son to Sri Lanka for propagation of Buddhist religion. Ashoka's Dhamma cannot be regarded as a sectarian faith, a separate sectarian faith. His teachings were intended to maintain the existing order on the basis of tolerance only. So, in spite having the personal reverence to Buddhism, he propagated Buddhism also, but he did not force his own subjects or other people to forcibly convert to Buddhism. The next thing is, the next important information about Mauryan Empire came from the various Ashokan edicts and inscription. All over Indian subcontinent, specifically in northwestern part of India and eastern part of India, we find various edicts of Ashoka and inscriptions written on edicts and other objects through which we get information about Mauryan Empire. So, the most important source of history of Mauryan Empire period came from the edicts and information inscription. The major and minor rock edict, these are 16 and 2 number 2 respectively. There are some major and minor pillar edict, 17 and 3 in number. These were reported from following places. For example, in Meerut, in Topara, Yamunanagar, Haryana, Koshambi in UP, Sanchi MP, Sarnath in UP, Loria Nandgarh and Loria Araraj, Rampur and Lumbini in Nepal in Ganga Valley. If you want to remember all these edicts or the name of specific place, you can refer to some few books which provide factual knowledge. For example, you can refer Lucent for such kind of tribal information, but UPSC rarely asks such kind of question. Once in a few, or you can say that once in a while, this kind of question can appear in UPSC examination. So, don't pay much heed to such factual information. The next thing is, the national emblem of India is taken up from the Sarnath pillar of Ashoka. The national emblem of India, the capital, the lion capital of India is taken from the Ashokan inscription only. The name of Ashoka occurs only on minor rock edicts. We came to know about the name of Ashoka through the rock edicts only. His name, such as Devanam Piyadasi Ashoka, was mentioned on the rock edicts only. The language used in Ashokan edicts was primarily Prakritic language, and the script used was Brahmi script. And in northwestern India, or specifically present day Afghanistan region, the script was Kharosti script. So, you have to remember both the scripts. For example, the Brahmi and Kharosti both were used. Next is Mauryan Empire. If we see the administration, Mauryan administration, the entire Mauryan Empire was centrally administered, but it was divided into several provinces, or the 5 provinces for the sake of ease of governance. So, the empire, the provinces were as following. For example, the northern province was known as Uttarapath. The region of present day, for example, Madhya Pradesh, was known as Avantipath. Third was Prachyapath. Fourth was Dakshinapath, and fifth, the epitome or epicenter of empire, that was Magda. Mauryan Empire had used army and maintained navy, but large reference or a specific reference of navy are not very much in vogue. So, next is how they maintained the central administration. The king was the nucleus. King was having all the power, but he was assisted by his Mantri Parishad, and thus few of ministers, for example, the Yuvraj, Purohit and Senapati were there to assist the king in performing his task. The highest officers were called Tirthas and Adhyaksha, or superintendents, who manage 26 departments. There are few of the name of important officials. You can have a glance over these names. For example, Mantri was called the chief minister, Mantri Parishad Adhyaksh was known as head of the council of minister, Purohita was the chief priest who suggested, who was the chief strategist, or who suggested various moves to the emperor. Next was the commander-in-chief, or the Senapati, who lead the army. Next was the crown prince, who was the first in the line to become the empire, was Yuvraj. Next, the collection of revenue was on the shoulders of Sangrahata, as you come to know about the Sanskrit word Sangrahan, Sangrahata. Next is शुल्काध्यक्ष. शुल्क हिंदी या संस्कृत वर्ड आपको समझ आता होगा. ऑफिसर इन चार्ज ऑफ रॉयल इनकम. Spies were maintained in form of spies or information of informer. They played important role in maintaining the internal security of Mauryan Empire. If we look for the administration, local administration in Mauryan Empire, this was the arrangement. Mauryan state also had local and municipal administration in form of Vish or Ahara at district level were the unit of a province. For example, this is a Mauryan Empire and we have 5 states, and among the 5 states, each state was divided into different district, or you can say that wishes. Megasthenes Indica or Megasthenes account mention about the 6 committees of 5 members each for administering the municipality. So you have to remember just this information, that in which treatise the reference about the local administration of Mauryan Empire was given. So you have to remember the name in Megasthenes Indica. The important list of important information officers is given here. You can have a glance about these officers. You can, if you can remember, if you can mug up the name of these officers, then well then good, otherwise you have to move upon. Similarly, at village level there are few officers. For example, the head of the village was known as Gramika. The panchayat consists of village elder. For example, the present day you can say that a reference of you can say that Gram Sabha, like sort of committee was there, that was known as Gram Vridha. And Sudarshan Lake was constructed during the reign of Chandragupta Maurya in Girnar Hill in Gujarat. Next is Tamarlipti, or you can say that present day the area near Kolkata in West Bengal in the east, and Bharuch or Barigaza in Gujarat in the west were 2 important ports. So if you see the map of India, here was Tamarlipti and here was Bharuch. This is Tamarlipti and here was Bharuch or Bharuch. Both these were the port cities. And these port city maintained their importance or prominence till date also. So the next thing is the huge army and navy were maintained, in which all the 4 Varnas were allowed to serve. Next is the Raja was the king or head, Mitra his friend, Durg was known as the fort or known as forts were known as the Durg, Amatya the secretary, Janapada the territory, Kosha the treasure. These are the 7 elements of states of Kautilya's Saptanga theory. So the question can be asked like, who gave the Saptanga theory? The answer will be Kautilya, and among these 7 elements, few can be asked in form of you can say that option, and you can be asked which of the following form the part of Saptanga given by Kautilya. So you have to remember these 7 elements given by Kautilya. So we have discussed about various facets of Mauryan Empire. For example, the economy, for example, administration and the society of Mauryan Empire. Now the last topic is the decline of Mauryan Empire, how this mighty empire came to an end. There are differing, or you can say that conflicting views of experts or historian about the decline of Mauryan Empire. We'll have some points here. Let's see one by one. The first reason was the over centralization was prominent among them, because due to over centralization the large area cannot be ruled by overly centralized polity, because due to over centralization we can have firm, or you can say that strong hold over the capital and the nearby region, but the peripheral territories cannot be controlled through over centralized. So to maintain the over centralization, the bureaucracy become cumbersome. To maintain or to pay such large bureaucratic setup, you need high resources, and for that high resources, super heavy taxes were imposed on almost every activity. So due to the burden of such high taxation, the producers were left with the little at their disposal. So it became one of the reason of decline of Mauryan Empire. Next is the neglect of northwestern front and the construction of Great Wall of China. Due to construction of Great Wall of China, the eastern border of you can say that India, northeastern border of India or Magadhan Empire was secured, but they neglected the northwest frontier of India. They did not learnt this from the Chinese ruler that you should secure your northwestern front through through that corridor there comes a series of invasion which created havoc in northwestern part of India time and again. The next is the financial crisis, as Ashoka incurred huge expenditure for promotion of his Dhamma mission. This reason was also propagated by few historians. Next is becoming the over tolerant and non-violent attitude of Ashoka. It killed the fighting spirit of the army. The entire army become demotivated. They become very pacifistic in nature. Next is after Ashoka's death in 223 BC. Now moving on to the second last topic, that is the decline of Mauryan Empire. Various historians or experts have differing opinion about the decline of Mauryan empires. We'll see the multiple theories through our points one by one. The first and foremost is that Mauryan empire was such a huge empire that it crumbled under its own weight only due to the over centralization. Mauryan polity was a centralized one, and to maintain the over centralization or a cumbersome bureaucracy was required, a bureaucratic structure was required, and to bear with such a cumbersome bureaucracy or such level of bureaucracy, you need heavy resources to pay those bureaucrats. For that, in Mauryan time, a heavy taxation was imposed on almost every activity. This led to reduction in the treasury, or the people were, or the producer were left with little at their disposal at the end of year, and also the foreign invasion were main factor of the decline. Next is the neglect of northwestern frontier of India. In northern and northeastern part, the Chinese wall was built in northern part of India in Himalayas region, but the Mauryan ruler did not learn a lesson from this task or this move of Chinese ruler. They left their northwestern frontier as it is. They did not you can say that start such measure to thwart the invasion from northwestern part of India, and we see the series of invasion through the passes of northwestern India, for example through the Bolan Pass, for example through the Khyber Pass. We see a series of invasion through centuries from that part only. So due to the neglection of northwestern frontier, the foreign invasion become the factor of decline. The next is the financial crisis, and due to which, because Ashoka sent missionaries for propagation of Buddha, this led to decline of the resources in treasury. The next and fourth point is the over tolerant and non-violent attitude killed the fighting spirit of army. The army become dismotivated in due course of time due to the pacifist policy of Ashoka. The next is after the Ashoka's death in 232 BC, the Mauryan emperor his successors were incompetent and oppressive, and इस situation का फायदा किसने उठाया? The commander of chief of Mauryan empire, Pushyamitra Shunga, he killed the last Mauryan emperor Bhadrat and founded the Shunga dynasty in 187 BC. This marked the end of the great Mauryan empire in India. So Pushyamitra Shunga overthrew the Mauryan king and established the Shunga dynasty. So this was all about the origin the various theory about the origin, the various facets of Mauryan Empire, and the various theories regarding the decline of Mauryan Empire. So in the last topic, we'll see the various officers in charge of various department in Mauryan Empire. UPSC has habit of asking such question by giving the name of officer, and you have to find out the officer was responsible for which department. So you can have a glance over this slide and you can remember the name of few of them. I'll mark the important one. For example, the Prasasti is the present head, Sannidatta was the treasury head, Koshadhyaks was the treasury officer, and the important ones such as Karamintaka was the head of industries and factory, Dandapala the head of police, Durgapala head of royal fort, and you can see that the another important Ayu the Adhyaks, weapon manufacturing and defense head, and the next was Mudradhyaks, royal symbol or coins were headed by this officer. This is all about the important officer of Mauryan period. So we'll come up with another important topic in our next video. Till then, enjoy watching our video, watch these videos multiple times so that you can acquaint yourself with the probable or most important information from your prelims perspective. We'll bring such more awesome video for you in due course of time. So stay tuned with us for the next 30 days. We can assure or we will assure that you will pass the prelims with flying colors. Till then, take care and keep revising.